out. 2-point match.
Edwards able to knock Lee to his rear end there. Locked hands. Able to roll through. Did he catch him on his back?
He's got him. He's got him on his back. Oh my goodness.
Look out. It's
And he's looking for
Ramos.
the fall. He's looking for the fall. If he just holds him here, he's going to pull one of the biggest upsets in NCAA wrestling history.
Stepped across right there.
And he's
Now
looking for the
gonna
fall.
get the
He's looking for the fall.
Oh, my goodness. The unthinkable in Tulsa. And the king has been knocked off the throne. Ramos knocks off Lee to go to the finals.
Matt Ramos of Purdue has knocked off one of the greatest college wrestlers of all time. What an incredible finish.
Welcome back to the Always Aggressive podcast. Cory from Tanner Lipsett. Head coach Tony Ersland. We got a lot of off-season stuff to talk about, boys.
There is no off-season.
The end of the semester and all the academic stuff. We'll leave that to the guys. And thankfully, we don't have to go to class right now, right, T?
Hey, man.
I'll take it.
One place we are going, though, is Las Vegas this week. U20s out in Vegas along with the U.S. Open. Coach, I know we're taking a contingent of guys out there. Tell us a little bit about the group that's going to go compete in Vegas.
Yeah, several freshmen. I mean, between two redshirt freshmen and true freshmen, man, it's a good group. 5 kids competing out there, all in the U20 division, which, as we were just discussing, is big. I think, Tanner, did you say is up 200, numbers wise from what it was last year?
I don't want to screw this up, but I believe I read almost 800 kids in the U20s, and it's up over 200 from last year's entries. So a huge increase in participation. There's been an increase at all 3 levels, the Open, U20s, and U17s, but U20s is a massive increase.
No, absolutely. Going to be very competitive. And if you look, like I said, a mix of redshirt freshmen and true freshmen. You have guys like Jacob Makatange, going Cade Law, Brody Bowman, Stoney Buell, and Tristan Ruhlman. Is rounding out our group, all in the U20 freestyle division. So, yeah, another great opportunity to compete. Some of those guys competed a lot in our lineup, and some guys were red-shirted and be first time out in a while. So, going to be a lot of fun regardless.
It's really interesting. The U20 division is always fascinating to me because you have this crazy mix of old high school kids and young college kids. And so there's all these, blue chip caliber recruits who are, going into their freshman year of college. They haven't competed at that level yet. And then you've got some guys that, have a year under their belt. And then you have some real youngins like Stoney and Tristan who have 2 years under their belt. But they're super young for their grade. And so they're still able to compete at that level. So I was going through some of the different fields today and looking at names, and I find the mesh of those 3 kind of like those 3 years really interesting.
Yeah, no, like I said, and it all boils down to a very tough event and fun for us to see the improvements. And we were just talking, we went out for coffee after practice this morning and got a chance to talk about how everybody looked and kind of where they're showing improvement, as far as getting to their attacks and finishes and things like that. So just another opportunity to compete for all of your hard work, right? That's the most fun, is getting a chance to compete, and B, just see where there's progress, where there's progress. And then also, what do we really want to focus on this summer with each of those guys? So again, a lot of fun. Competing is always a reward for the hard work you put in, but then also, hey, this is where we need to be, and it's going to be good competition. So it will highlight where we need to improve over the summer.
I wouldn't want to put together the bracket with that many guys. I can tell you that much. No, thank you.
Yeah, and that'll be a deal right out of the gate, right? I mean, they'll use some separation criteria, but they don't seed it, all the way out. It's going to be a lot of good people meeting early in that tournament.
Yeah, I was specifically looking at the 61-kilo bracket for U20s is pretty loaded. There's almost 100 kids in the bracket, and obviously our Jacob Makatange's in there, but there's a murderer's row of kids. Like I said, both outstanding high school kids and some good young studs from the college ranks that will be looking for the top 8 at that weight. There's going to be a lot of really good kids that do not place at 61 kilos.
No, absolutely right.
I thought the other one that was particularly interesting to me was Stoney at 74 kilos, Coach. I thought that was a bracket where I feel like he's got a decent shot to make some noise.
Yeah, and Stoney has the freestyle pedigree too, right? Like when he's got good skill sets, right? He's got the mean head pinch, he's got the gut, like he's got some very good skill sets for freestyle, but he also has that pedigree, right? Being a cadet national champ at a young age. Mm-hmm. So I think he will be pretty formidable, as a guy in that bracket. I look forward to watching him compete because he had to do a lot of growing up and a lot of learning, being in the lineup first time this year, made some key improvements. Like, when we were talking this morning, he's a guy who is now getting to the leg much cleaner than he was during the year. I mean, when he gets there, he's in strong position to finish. So excited again for that guy and see, how he's going to do, because he works hard, right? He's putting in the work and he's in shape. I think he's done a really good job with his weight. Again, 74 kilo, a little bit lighter than where he competed at, this year at 165, which I think is going to be a big positive for him.
Coach, I had a question. You've sort of talked around this issue a couple times already. It is a freestyle tournament, and once we get outside of collegiate wrestling, it's freestyle or Greco-Roman, and it's just a very different. I mean, there's a lot of similar traits, but it's a very different sport than folks.
They are 100% different sports, buddy. You said it right.
How can you tell? What do you look for in what the guys are going to do, the last month in training for this weekend and in their performance this weekend? What sort of things are you looking for? That's like, okay, we're progressing where we want to be come next fall.
Yeah. And most of that is just the mindset of creating exposure, right? And I've said this often, but if you look at the two sports, freestyle and folk style, like folk style is built around control. And you don't need control to score points at all in freestyle. And so it's just shifting your mindset as well as having some skill sets that you can score without controlling your opponent. You're not looking to control. I just want to expose them, whether it was feet to back or down in the parterre position. And so when I say, Stoney has some skill sets, that's true. Like he's not always looking to control you. He knows how to play the game, right? In any game you play, there's tactical, techniques that are come into play, and Stoney has a strong grasp in a sense of what he can do to be successful in that sport. And so, I think everybody has to figure out where they sit within the skill sets where they can be successful. And that's not the same. Sometimes you can shoot yourself out of a match. I was just, Brody Bowman, an attacker, right? An athletic, a kid, who wants to get to the legs. But sometimes you can attack so much, you put yourself in, I say chase yourself into quicksand. Yeah, like you can shoot to your knees, get stuck, and now you're in those chest wrap, head pinches, Go back and watch how Matt Ramos, beat Spencer Lee with the head pinch and thread the arm. Like you can chase yourself into some pretty sticky situations. And so I had a long conversation with Brody about that today. Like attacking isn't always better in certain situations. You can actually put yourself in a lot of trouble. So understanding, how you can be hurt in certain positions. There's a learning curve there. And I think, like I said, Stoney's had success at that level, and I think has a really good grasp of what he wants to do when he's out there competing in freestyle.
I've heard this explanation a few times, Cory, and I'm not ashamed to say that after 17 years around the sport, I still don't have a full grasp on freestyle. It still leaves me with some very confused moments. So very excited that I get the chance to go watch again this weekend and try to learn more. And I don't have any hair to pull out anymore, so I'm good there. But well,
I know one topic of discussion, sort of on the fringes of this topic, some proposed rule changes. We're going to get to that in a little bit. We're gonna
let's not go there yet, man.
But there is some concern, or maybe not concern's the right word, but there's some viewpoints out there that with some of these rule changes, folk style is getting closer to freestyle with some of the things. Like I said, we'll talk about those in a bit. Before we get away from Vegas, the U.S. Open will also be out there, the senior level event. And I mean, I was looking at just the entry list the other day. It may be one of the best tournaments in American wrestling history. The depth at every weight class is just unbelievable.
Very deep. No doubt, very, very deep. And as we said before we got on air, the qualification process has changed a little bit, with a lot of world medalists coming back for Final X. So now those guys have to go to the Open. There's no, hey, I'm already qualified for the trials. So you get into that small mini bracket and then wrestle from there to see who goes out.
There's no mini bracket, right? This is the mini bracket?
This is it. So the winners, at those weights, right, where you have a returning world medalist, which is a lot of the weights, the winner of the Open goes straight into wrestle, like say, 74 kilo or 79 kilo, Jordan Burroughs. The winner of 79 kilos at the Open goes and faces Burroughs for 2 out of 3. And that's the case at a lot of weights, where you have those returning, world medalists. So, this year it was, hey, you had to be at the Open. In past years, that wasn't the case, and it could, lead to a field that's not quite as deep. But that's not the case this year. It's going to roll very deep, and it's going to be a lot of good people. Several NCAA champs in a bracket, lots of All-Americans when you just talk folk style in that bracket. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, lots of looking forward to seeing that. We talked even – there's some brackets at U17s that, some of those young kids that are going to be incredibly deep that we're looking forward to getting to watch and see what they shake out like.
Yeah, and that's a lot of fun for us, right? As much as we're going to be out there coaching our own guys, right? Keeping track of 5 of them. We're going to be watching a lot of these young kids at U17s and how they perform, looking for the next Boilermaker, of the future. And so we will be busy, double duty, I guess, between both recruiting and coaching our guys.
You never stop working, do you?
No, and the funny thing is, right, the transfer portals made that the same way, as far as the collegiate guys go. It used to be a slower time now, right? It was always busy because of getting these young guys ready for the Open or the U20s. Mm-hmm. But man, I tell you now that the portal's going, I mean, you're as busy as ever. You guys know we've hosted visits several weekends since the NCAA championships. So it's really cranked up and running as hot and hard as ever right now.
We are hoping to get a break though. Obviously we can't talk too much in specifics, but pretty crazy. Feel like we're getting close to the end of the 24 class that can't even sign until November.
That's nuts.
Yes, isn't that wild? I mean, we're recruiting the portal hard. I just think you have to, and there's a lot, noticeable uptick in quality in there this year.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to, you can't ignore what that is. And then you're also always looking to the future. Right. And so we're still adding to our fall class. I think we're at around 10 right now. I think we're planning on getting another commit here in the next day or two as well. I'll knock on wood. Don't jinx it. But you're as busy as ever trying to bring in the class for the fall, but we're still way ahead on where we're at for that 24 class too. It's literally you get another commit or two there, and you're done till 25. It's a different feeling from maybe where I've been most of my career. In terms of recruiting seniors, where you got them on campus in August, September, and they commit and decide in November. Those days are gone.
Forgive my ignorance. Were there changes in the recruiting process, or is that why it's so accelerated?
Yeah, rising juniors are now able to be contacted June 15th.
Okay.
Right, and so while we're prohibited from naming names, you can bet that even though we're having our weekly staff meetings like we always do, a big concern or part of that puzzle is looking at all of the class of 25 and who you're getting ready come June 15 to get going on. I mean, and you're already going on them in certain ways, right? Within the rules, like you need to, questionnaires and obtain the information you need so that you can really hit the ground running.
Yeah, the fact that we're going to contact 2025s in a little under 2 months seems a little crazy on one hand, but on the other hand, Cory, I mean, we've got spreadsheets that have, the next 2, 3, 4 classes and the lineup and who's going to be in school and what year they're going to be in. Like, you stop looking to the future, and you take a break, and you fall behind pretty quickly.
Well, the other thing it's really unique to this particular moment is, they lighten the restrictions on when you can contact guys, so that's accelerated. The transfer portal is new-ish, but it's super active right now, and a lot of that has to do with guys who have graduated at their initial institution, but they've got an extra year, maybe they've got an extra 2 because of the COVID waiver. Yeah. And there's so many different ways to attack attack your roster and how to put it together. Did you sit down as a staff and choose a way, like, or is it gotta be a case by case, guy by guy need basis?
Yeah, I think it's more of a case by case and looking at your needs basis for me. I don't think you can build the culture of your team through the portal. I still don't believe that. But definitely, right, you can't ignore the fact that there are going to be great kids in there looking for homes. Maybe the fit was wrong, or they were behind a guy and they just want an opportunity. So you have to evaluate that. Like I said, my personal philosophy, I'm not saying every year you're going to go in and find 5 or 6 guys to build your team. I just don't think you can do that from a culture perspective. But I think we all feel like our culture here at Purdue is really strong. We have a good base group. So when you add guys to that, it's a great fit. And clearly Matt Ramos, who was just looking for a better fit, is proof of that. He's found a home here and loves it and is, reaching his goals. So again, if you use it in that way, I'm all for it. But like anything, you can misuse it, right? And I think that's, if you look at name, image, likeness, and the portal, it can be abused in ways that are very negative. And so you got to be careful with that. And that's why I tell you, to me, it's a case by case basis.
Okay. I think I'm curious to hear kind of your guys' take on this, but I really believe that, people have things to say about NIL, and people have things to say about the transfer portal. But I feel like the perfect storm of these kids with the extra year for COVID, in addition to the transfer portal, in addition to some of these new loose rules surrounding NIL, has and it's not just wrestling. This is something that's permeated all of college athletics. I was talking about it with a bunch of buddies the other night about how, like, any of one of these things on their own may have not shaken things up as much, but the combination of all 3 of them is just wreaking havoc on college athletics.
Yep.
Another question. Everybody just agrees. I like it. That's perfect. Okay, good.
Yeah, I mean, I got nothing else to. I'm going to give you a yeah. You know what I mean? Like, yes. It's crazy, and I'm hoping that things calm down after you get past the COVID year, right? Because what that has created is these kids have graduated at their institutions. They got another year so they can go. Like, is that going to continue to be a thing, for us? I hope not, right? Like, for anybody, I certainly want kids to find homes that they're comfortable and they feel good about. Like that's the right reason, for kids to transfer. But the wrong reasons, right, is just, hey, let's just go find a bag of money, in my opinion. And I'm all for opportunity. Again, like, you want to use your name, image, and likeness, that should be allowed. Mm-hmm. I got zero issue with what the original intent was, okay, to help kids in those ways. But to have people calling and poaching kids off rosters and saying, hey, get in the portal, I got a bag for you, right? I don't think anybody feels good about that. And I think those are the situations where it's getting misused, where we all start to cringe. Okay, he's graduated, go hit him up on the roster and throw some money at him. Well, that makes me nervous from a sports standpoint.
The other thing that you hate to see, and there've already been a couple pretty high profile cases of this, is, maybe the school gets on and offers X and then delivers X or like 30% of X, to that student athlete. And all of a sudden they made a choice that was financially based that didn't deliver. And
the stories out there about people not coming through on NIL deals is crazy.
And I can't, there's gonna come a point in time where I think some high profile deals that fall short get blown up, and some coaches or some programs sort of face the public wrath on that. I think that's not too hard to imagine.
I definitely think that's going to happen, right? I think I don't want it to happen in wrestling, right? Because you don't want your sport hurt, right? And that's where I land is you don't want a negative light in your sport because of somebody's abusing it, in such a way, right? Like it'd be great if you see it and somebody gets smacked in say basketball or football, say. Nothing's going to happen in those sports. We're talking about maybe some non-revenue sports where if that level of cheating is going on, that really hurts the sport in total, in my opinion.
For sure. The other effect that it's had, we haven't talked about this a lot, has been with post-grads and grad assistantships at this level. You have all these kids that are getting 6 years of college through, with their eligibility. And so they're finishing a master's degree. They're getting certificates. They're getting all this grad work done before they finish. And so they're done with their eligibility. And now they're looking for coaching positions. They want to get into, they want staff positions. And, everybody's like, oh, hey, we got a GA position. Like, I'm done with school.
I already got my master's.
Yeah. I've got 2 degrees.
I'm not trying to be a doctor, coach.
Right.
Right. And I think I'm wondering what the long-term effects of that will be on the younger coaches and the up and coming next generation of young coaches.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're already at a huge coaching shortage, right? Just in general, if you look, officials and coaches, nationwide, whether you're talking about high school athletics or collegiate, I think there's just a big shortage and a huge need there. And you've got to go find that next group of guys who will invest in it. But the money, again, right, that's part of it. You think of some of these guys as undergrads and what schools are offering NIL, it really distorts the view of what this is, right? Like you get a young man who received X, right? Like let's just say $200,000 to go compete and to wrestle. And now you go into a profession and you want to coach. And let's say, and very few positions pay huge, right? Let's just say, hey, you're going to make, between 50 and 60 a year to start to coach. And that's good money, but they're looking at you like, what? Like, why? I'm taking a huge pay cut here, right? Like it distorts what this really is, what that journey is, and
you're gonna have to work for your money. We're not just gonna hand it to you in a
think about that. You're used to getting paid, and all you had to do was lift in the morning, show up and practice in the afternoon. The next day maybe you drill, morning, you come back. So your life was training, and deservedly so. Like you got to be selfish when you're trying to reach world and Olympic medals. But now it's coach, and you got to be there all day, and you're going to coach all day, every kid, doing all those individuals or all those workouts. Be there again in the afternoon to run practice. And then at night when you go home, start making recruiting calls, right?
Oh, and the kids are going to class.
It's not easy, boys, right? We talk about it all day that there's just no break. And I love it, but you got to be in for that. Right. And it's a different gig. And like I said, I'm interested to see where this next generation of coaches and officials come from and how they view that.
It's going to be interesting for sure. So we take off Thursday to head out to Sin City. We'll get registered, get everybody checked in and ready to go on Friday. And then action kicks off on Saturday, Flow Wrestling streaming the whole event. So, keep an eye on the Twitter accounts and Instagram and whatnot to see mat assignments and matchups and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it'll be busy, just the way we like it. Like I said, between coaching our own guys and watching all those good U17 kids, we got plenty enough to keep us running from mat to mat.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Cory, are you? I mean, this is the one you wanted to go after, so
Yeah, well,
for you.
when I brought it up and you're like, oh, me and Tony disagree on this, and so if you want to see us to go, throw down, and that's when you got me. That's what clinched it. The Twitter sphere was on fire last week with the proposed rules changes, the potential for rules changes in collegiate wrestling, and I know there's a process and there's a vetting process, and it's all very preliminary right now, but. First of all, Coach, the lay out for us the handful of rules changes that were discussed or that are being discussed.
Yeah, no. So the most impactful ones, in my opinion, right? The takedown going from 2 points to 3 points, eliminating riding time unless you turn. You know what I mean? That was another. That was another big one. They tried to really add a 3-point near fall back in, right? We had the 2 and we've had the 4, and they thought, okay, if a 2 count is 2, a 3 count should be 3, and a 4 count should be 4. So now you have the added near fall as well. They also tweaked the riding the ankle, giving it a count, trying to increase activity so guys couldn't just sit back on the ankle and slow the pace of wrestling down. So if you look like in totality the rules, they're trying to increase action and scoring, right? And at the same time disincentivize just riding a guy out just to collect riding time. Right now you got to turn to collect riding time, the count on the ankle, right? So all of these things in total looking to create more action, maybe even increase scoring. I will say, since they didn't deal with it, I wanted to see them deal with the edge rules as well. They chose to stay away from that. Okay. And maybe they just thought, hey, this is, aggressive enough and we don't want to really tackle the edge yet too. So I thought, overall, those were pretty aggressive rule changes.
Yeah.
For me. And I think a lot of people agreed they were aggressive. And now where Tanner and I part, and I'll just throw it out, is I am generally in favor for a lot of these. And just for this, I think, I didn't like where the sport was going in terms of just hanging on to ride, no attempt to turn or really create action or improve. It was just about, collecting that riding time or getting to the double OT and riding a guy for 30 or winning by 1 second longer. And I do think that hurts the sport. So I'm not going to tell you, I think every one of these is going to do what it's designed to do. That's my disclaimer. But I applaud that group of people who propose these changes in terms of taking a big swing at doing something to create, action within the sport. I do applaud them for that. And I'm interested to see where this is going to go. It may not do what they want it to do. But I think they took a strong stance in trying to get there.
I definitely, where Tony and I definitely agree on this subject is I agree with him as far as I appreciate the intent. I appreciate, I agree with him on the problems that we're facing and the whole idea of guys just hanging on and gaming riding time, and they drop the ankle for a 4 count and they go back up and then they drop the ankle again and I think that there is a lot of that holding on and so on and so forth. And so I appreciate the intent of what, they think that these rule changes will do. I look at it from a fan's perspective in the fact that, these are the arguments I made to Tony. He got mad at me the other day. But when was the last time they changed the value of a basket in basketball?
1987.
Well, no, and that was the addition of a scoring.
Yeah, right.
That wasn't a changing the value of the bucket. Last time they changed the value of a touchdown.
Probably never.
Okay. What about a run in baseball? When was the last time they changed the value of a run?
Yeah, it's always been 1.
I feel like changing the points and changing the structure of the sport is confusing, and I think it hurts the casual fan. That's my opinion. That's my stance. That's where I'm going to dig my heels in on this. I feel like there are things in the sport that are hard enough for somebody to walk in off the street and understand. And so, let's say somebody started being a casual fan last year and they come back in this year and they're like, wait a minute, I thought that was 2 points. Why isn't that 2? Why is that 3? And then you start getting the confusion. And I think Tony agrees with me on this one. I don't like the 3 count swipe because all of a sudden you've got this great. I love the separation between 2 and 4.
Yeah.
It's either 2 or it's 4. If you start muddying the water in between, I think you open yourself up to a whole load of argument over, was that 2 swipes? Was that 3 swipes? Was it 2.5? Was it 3? Was it 4?
Yeah, were they late on the first swipe, so it only got to 2, and it should have been 3? Or
I think it gets real muddy real fast.
One thing I will say is, at least these changes are black and white. A takedown is a takedown. It's just whether or not you're getting 2 or 3. The no riding time unless you get a turn. Whether you like it or not, it's clear cut. It's not, like you said, Tony, the edge rules that they put in a few years ago, and they left so much gray area on that. It looks like a color scale. It's wild. And there still hasn't been clarification on that. You see it called sometimes 2 different ways in the same duel, but I like that you both agree, adding to offense, getting more aggression is a good thing. And I mean, this has been a problem for a while, or a growing problem for a while, but that Penn State Iowa duel earlier this year, if there's an inciting incident, it might have been that night where, a huge crowd was watching on national TV, and let's call it what it is. They saw a boring wrestling duel.
Oh yeah.
You have to be a true fan of the sport to really appreciate, and that's bad for casual viewers.
Yeah, for sure. So you think about a couple of huge events that we've had, right? Clearly, take a Penn State Iowa. That's a big deal, right? They're going to draw really well. That's a large audience. And again, when you're reduced to 1-1 in riding time and guys just getting them out of bounds, dropping down to the leg, collecting the riding time, and now I win on a few seconds. Mm-hmm. Fans don't want to see that. Fans do want to see aggression and scoring. And so that's why I applaud them for that. The other point I would say here, too, is that the officials have a part in this. Okay. I feel, and I've told people this for a long time, traditional stalling has gone away. And so if you take these rules and then you give, and then the officials get after guys and do start calling stalling just from a traditional standpoint, not when a guy's hugging an ankle, not when a guy just drops down. Any official can understand a rule book, right? Mm-hmm. It's understanding what's going on. Is he stalling? Is he not trying to score? Is he not carrying action? If they would get involved, because I can remember, when I was competing both in high school and early on in my college career, those guys were throwing the fist up often to get people wrestling. I think there is a responsibility still on officials to call traditional stalling. Otherwise, these rules won't have the effect we want. And one example I'll use is 3-point takedown, right? If the officials don't keep guys active, you're going to see guys go out, get a takedown. It's going to be, 3-1 after that. And they're going to maybe go run hide. Mm-hmm. They're going to run, hide and stay in the center of the map, but they're not going to do anything because you can't beat them anymore with a ride out, with riding time, right? You either got to turn them or, you guys got to take you down. So I don't know, depending on how the officials deal with this, if it's going to be good or bad, right? I could make cases both ways. And so I understand why people are heated on both sides. But that's why I say, hey, take the rules and officials, man, let's get in there and make guys wrestle. And if they do that, I think this is a positive thing. I think wrestling will be in a better spot. And then to rebut Tanner on this, people have always changed rules. You can say, hey, they don't change scoring, but man, you've got people changing rules all the time. The NFL and basketball have constantly changed things. So you have to be willing to try to do things. I'm not saying all changes have been great, but they moved the extra point back, in terms of football, that you created the 3-point shot. You have the shot clock. You're starting runners on second base now. You got a pitch clock. I think you have to be willing to tweak things to grow your sport. And again, I think it's worth the risk to do that. So that's now, again, there's two things here. You got the rule changes, and I think you got to have the officials. Hey, we're going to promote action. We're going to force guys to wrestle each other, because if you do that, man, kids are good. They'll figure it out. If they know, hey, I'm going to get called if I sit back too much, they'll start wrestling. It'll happen.
Just like they figured out now how to game the system right now. Okay, I can sink my legs. I can not really do anything. I can ride parallel. If it looks like I'm trying something, they're going to let me ride it out.
Does the 3-point takedown, let's go out on a limb here and say, because I agree with you about the officiating. The officiating there has to be a change to match the rules, right?
Yeah.
Do you find any concern that they don't change the way they're calling stalling, and now a 3-point takedown encourages stalling even more because you can hit them 3 times? Now you hit them twice and it negates it, right? Because there's that 1-point spread. Now you got to hit them 3 times to negate that takedown spread.
Yeah, it's hard to say, right? I mean, you can say you're tied, right? At least if you give up a point, you're tied, right? Assuming like you get out twice, and are you good on top? Are you still that guy because wrestling still, I agree, should be about 3 positions, right? It should be bottom and top and then your feet. And so I don't think because of the near fall, you're going to lose people, on those skill sets, right? So, is he going to go down? If he doesn't, it's 3-2, and then there's the stall call, gets you to 3-3, but he can't beat you. Like what would frustrate me sometimes is you take a kid down one time, you were the only one maybe taking a risk. The other guy he could essentially get out twice, get riding time,
Yep.
And you can find yourself beat. So
I couldn't agree more. I think seeing that is one of the more frustrating things in wrestling, to see, a kid who can't score that can still win the match.
Somebody shakes 7 or 8 times and
we should reward risk, right? Like, and that's the thing in freestyle, right? Where they reward attempts, risk. Like, that's where I throw it back to the officials a little bit. Let's reward risk. Let's do that. Let's reward attempts and scoring. Then that's where I land in favor of it.
Another thing where the officials can have some effect, and we see it some now, is if you've got an official that's quick with the stalemate call. Like, okay, maybe you're not stalling, but you're not going anywhere. You're not doing anything with this. Let's restart.
Yeah, and that was a big point of contention with me last year's. It seemed like leg riding. If a guy got a leg in and you got a guy flat, like, improving there was going to be difficult, right? The guy was content to keep pressure over your hips and just collect riding time. Those stalemates in a restart didn't come fast enough, right? So it's you had to avoid the position altogether to not have the whole period disappear on you. And in my opinion, I don't think that's good for the sport. Some people might say, hey, man, top riding, shouldn't have let the leg in, shouldn't have let your stuff get flat. But again, we're trying to, you're trying to grow an audience too, right? So part of this is you want your casual people to be able to come and attract new fans. As our fan base ages, you want newer and younger people to come and understand what's going on and pick up the sport. And I think lack of action will hurt you. I think that's where every sport lands, right? Like, we got to keep this moving and keep action going, because lack of action hurts your fan base.
There's a couple data points that I think would be interesting to know as we look at all this stuff, as far as, and we've talked about this a little bit, Tony. I would love to know how much the 3-point takedown would change the current scoring culture. Like, how many matches would have a different outcome at nationals, let's say?
Yep.
If they went back and rescored that bracket, how many matches would change? The other one I would love to see is I'd love to see the nationals rescored with these riding time rules. I would love to see how it would change things, where you got to how many matches were their back points scored in. How many times did guys turn, as opposed to just, riding an ankle or riding hips. Because, the old communications nerd in me, the stat nerd in me wants to know, like, I want to see the numbers. I want to see the contrast. I want to know, like, is this going to change a lot of things, or is this just going to, because if it's not going to change the outcome of the matches and it's only going to increase scoring, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
If it starts changing match outcomes wholesale based on one thing or another, I think it gives me, it just makes me have a lot more questions.
Yeah. Yep. I think the interesting thing here, and again, we can go down this rabbit hole forever. I get that, but they still addressed, to me, a couple sides of the equation where they increased the value on the feet, right? So, hey, we're going to reward you more for a takedown. So that was good. But then you still have the near fall piece addressed. Like, there's more ways, if you look at it this way, to get near fall. You can get the 2, the 3, and the 4. If that goes through. I'm not as sold on the 3 either, by the way. I think that the margin between 2 and 3 could create a lot of confusion. Like when you say clear it up for the fans, they're going to be wondering, did he get 2? Did he get 3? Was it clear? When there's a lot of action. So I don't know if that clears anything up. There could be confusion there, but they tried to deal both sides of the equation. Reward people who turn and reward people who are good on their feet. You know what I mean? And at the same time, take out where we're saying we're not getting enough out of just the riding. That's slowing it down to an extent that it's hurting us. So I thought they tried. The intent was in the right ways. Now we're going to see where it goes. I don't know if, you try to think of all the possible scenarios. And again, does 3-point make a guy get 1 takedown and sit in the center of the mat and do nothing? Or is it going to help incentivize, like, hey, man, I take a guy down a couple times, I'm in a great spot. Does that increase action, the attack rate, if you will? Are we going to see a higher attack rate, or are we going to see a lower attack rate because it's takedown and sit and hold?
Love to see more first period takedowns.
Yeah.
That's never a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. You see the whole idea of the 1-1 match that's decided by riding time or decided in overtime or however that goes. I think that's, like Cory said, I think that the diehards that understand a lot of the hand fighting and the positioning and stuff like that, which, by the way, is not me. I still don't really get all that. They can watch a match that's tight and really love it and enjoy it and so on and so forth. But I think the casual fan that just stands out there and watches 2 guys hand fight for 7 minutes are kind of bored. And so if it reduces that, if it gets rid of that, okay, I'm on board.
Yeah. And I guess I'm the guy, like, man, I appreciate action, right? I would love to see, an official calling people for stalling, because now it forces the other guy to get going, like engage. Like when it slows down to a point that we're 1-1 and one guy's clearly just trying to nickel and dime the guy to not get called for stalling and then collect 101 in riding time to win. Man, I just think that hurts us. I think, you want people who are out there to let it fly and go score and get after it. So I'm all in favor of that personally. And I do appreciate some of the technical aspects, on mat and some of those nuances, but I think that could hurt us, right? You got to think beyond as a coach personally, in this situation. It's not just as a coach, what do I value? You know what I mean? Like, man, I might get hurt with these rules, right? If you got some guys who can't score on their feet or whatever, you might get hurt, but what helps grow the sport? What is positive for that? And I'm all for that. Whatever takes this in a positive direction, I'm all for.
So where does it stand now? Are these rules going to be implemented? Are they still up for discussion? Are they still being reviewed?
So it got through the first, I don't know if level would be right, first committee, okay. And now they're going to be reviewed to be approved or, not allowed, I guess. And then it's a 2-year, I do know it's a 2-year cycle, right, on all rules. So if this goes through, you got to live with them for 2 years to see how they go.
Okay. Future topic for a future show. Like you said, we could go round and round, but I feel like
we get into the summer a little bit, and if these all go through, then boy, we can have another show.
Yep.
On just this.
That sounds good. I think we're going to leave this and everything else here for today. Good luck out in Vegas. Can't wait to see how that all shakes out, and we'll get together afterwards and talk about results. We still got to get Maddie Ramos on and Parker Phileas before he gets too far away
Yes.
from campus.
Maddie's a busy man. That man's phone doesn't stop ringing.
Good.
Yep.
As it should be.
Yep. Hey, before we go, I got to give a shout out to our good friend of the show, Kelly. I want her to know that we got the card and we got the check. So all of you listeners out there, you diehards like Kelly, appreciate it. Man, keep listening. Enjoy that stuff. Made me laugh. Made my day. I read the card to Tanner. Cory, have you seen it? I've not seen you. So
I'll be over after the show to take a look.
So Kelly, appreciate it, and we'll catch you later.
Beautiful. Thanks, guys. We'll see you down the road.